Welcome back to Nothing About Something. I am your host, Lauren, and today I have with me my cousin, Chriselle.
Hello.
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, me too. She drove all the way down from Dallas. We had to drive, 3-4 hours, each of us, to get here to do this podcast. Hopefully it's going to be a good one. Today, our episode is called From Tragedy to Triumph. So we're going to recap little Austin's story. Can you explain who Austin is?
Austin is my son. He is 11. Do you want me to just start with what happened or just tell him about Austin?
So I guess this whole idea for the podcast came about whenever you posted a video on TikTok. Austin got into an accident, which we'll get into in a minute, and you went viral on TikTok for this video. What are you at followers wise and likes wise for the first video that you
followers? I think I'm at like 27,000 followers now, which is crazy. When I started with about 140 likes, I think I'm sitting at like 750,000 likes total. And
wow,
the views for part one was over 13 million views at this point, which was crazy just to think that even took off as fast as it did.
Overnight.
Pretty much overnight, less than 48 hours.
That's crazy. Yeah, you popped up on a few of my friends' feeds too. And
are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Your cousin? Yeah. Yeah, that is.
That's pretty cool.
Anyways, so the TikTok video that she posted, we wanted to elaborate on. And the topic of that TikTok video was her son, Austin, got into a car accident 2 years ago.
Yep. It's been almost 2 years in May.
Yeah. So we wanted to dive into that accident, tell his story, and hope to maybe help somebody. If we can teach them helmet safety from this episode, hopefully this will do it and this could possibly save somebody. Oh, are you ready?
Wait, we're making another one?
Shit. Really, what I want to touch on is, I guess, how this whole idea came to post the TikTok video of Austin's accident.
It kind of started, Austin and I, for the past few months, had been talking about telling his story. And we've always, in our minds, wanted to tell a story because he had a story to tell. And he was one of those that we were thankful that he's still here. I mean, it was a very tragic situation. And he is only 11, and we love TikTok, and we watched it every once in a while together as a family here and there. And he wanted to post it on his TikTok account, but unfortunately, he's not of age. And so his account went away because he's not 13 yet. And so we then decided, all right, I'll post it on my TikTok account. So we came together and we decided on a 3-part series where it told about the first day or the day that it happened. And then the follow-up was his injuries and what actually happened in the hospital. And then the third one would be him now today and how he's recovered from his injury. And so that's pretty much in a package what we decided to do. And then that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, so he wanted to, I guess, inspire his friends.
There you go. Yes.
Be almost a warning in a way to helmet safety. Make sure you wear all your proper equipment when riding a bike.
Yep. One of the things that I think that triggered it is we see people all the time, a lot of his friends, even still to this day, newer friends especially, don't really wear their helmets like they do. And we're a moto and bicycle family. We are all about proper safety when it comes to riding, and helmets are a must. And with my daughter, and she rides motorcycles, so we do the full gamut of protection when we're doing that. So it's just important to us to follow those same protocols. No matter if it's a scooter, if it's a bike, if it's a motorcycle, we want to make sure that we're safely riding.
Yeah, of course. So without further ado, I want to talk about the accident itself, and then we can take bits and pieces apart and pick apart the accident and everything that happened. But can you just describe from your point of view what happened that day? So what is this accident we're talking about?
All right. So this was back in 2021. We were second day of summer. And I actually I'm a teacher, and I was still working, finishing up from the school year, doing some curriculum writing. So I was at school all day long. And I get home at, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Still plenty of day left. And I get home, and I'm talking with the kids, and I'm like, what have y'all done today? And they're like, oh, we've been on our iPads, just been watching TV. And so we're like, okay, y'all need to get out and go do something. Go play.
Yeah.
So my daughter goes and plays with her friend, and then Austin decides to go get on his bike and go see what his friends are doing. And so he had the same like pattern and track that he would track with his bike and stuff. And so he'd go to one friend's house, see if he was available to play. If he wasn't able to play, then he'd go to the next friend's house. If he wasn't able to play, then he'd move along. And then he'd always end up at the playground behind his school, and so, just to see if anybody was there to play. So we had friends over just hanging out. We're at the house, and I guess 30, 45 minutes goes by. And our neighbor across the street calls her husband, who happened to be with us at the time, and said, oh, wow, there's this crazy accident across the street from Austin's school. I don't know what's going on. And we're like, that's crazy. Because, I mean, we're in a very small community where there's not a lot of stuff going on. You don't see things like that. It's a very quiet community.
Yeah. And it's in the neighborhood too,
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely. In the neighborhood, just less than a mile away.
Wow.
And the next thing I know is I'm getting a call from Austin's phone. So Austin has a watch phone, or had a smartwatch. And I'm thinking it's him. I'm thinking because I knew that was the area that he would be in, thinking he had found this accident. And, oh my God, Mom.
Yeah.
So I answer it, and it's not Austin on the other line. And immediately, I mean, my heart sank because I was like, oh my gosh. So the guy on the other line said, is this Austin's mom? And the only reason he knew it was Austin was two reasons. On the phone, it says mom or dad. Like, you can call mom, call or dad on the smartwatch. So he knew to call mom. The only reason he knew it was Austin is a bystander had recognized him.
Oh, really?
And said, oh my gosh, I know him. That's Austin. And so the firefighter was able to pinpoint the name and say, okay, hey, we need to call Austin's mom. And so that's when he called, and he's like, your son's been involved in an accident. Where are you? And we're like, oh my gosh, we're right around the corner. We're less than 5 minutes away. Can we get there? And we need to transport him ASAP. So we'll wait for you if you get here quick enough. And so my husband and I jumped in the car. We raced to the scene. And of course, there's all these cars and there's people around and stuff. But we pull up next to fire trucks and ambulances and stuff and start walking up to it. And you could see the car, you could see his bike, and you could see all these people.
That gave me the chills.
Austin wasn't to be seen, and we found out shortly that he was actually in the ambulance at that point. And so firefighter recognized us. He brings us over and briefly explains the situation. And we're in a hurry at this point. We really need to get him to the hospital. We're trying to decide if we need to transport him via ambulance or transport him via care flight. Do you want to see him? And we're like, oh my gosh, he's in pretty bad shape. We're trying to stabilize him, but we'll let you each go in one at a time, and so you can go see him. And so my husband and I are looking at each other. Of course, yes, absolutely. So he goes in first. They open the door to the ambulance, and you could just hear him screaming. He is screaming. It hurts, and he's in so much pain. And so at that point, I'm tearing up. I'm crying. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, keep your calm. So then he comes out pretty quickly, and then I go in thinking, okay, maybe I can calm him down.
He was 9 at the time, right?
He was almost 10. His birthday was the next week. So this was just a handful of days before his birthday. And I go in there, and he's completely out of it. He doesn't recognize anybody. He's just in so much pain. And then he's grasping for his lungs and saying, I can't breathe. And so they're like, okay, Mom, Dad, we need to intubate him. We need to find out what's going on. Something's not right. He shouldn't be saying that he can't breathe and stuff. So at that point, they're like, can we intubate him? Yes, intubate him. So they intubate him, and then they decide that they're going to care flight him. And so then that was that process of getting the helicopter to land so that they can get him on and head him to the hospital at that point. So it all happened within, 30 minutes at the max. So from the time that we arrived until the time that he flew out, it was probably 20, 25 minutes or so.
At least they were quick to arrive at the scene. That's a good...
And we were surprised. And actually, they were surprised that they were able to get the care flight there as quick as they were. I guess he was already en route. It flies a pattern, and it was already near the area, so they were able to get it down pretty quickly.
Oh, wow. So Austin was just in shock then, I'm sure. That's why...
Yep.
Is that why he wasn't able to breathe? Just
yes.
Not.
So there was no damage to his lungs. He was in shock. It was more or less, it was a pain response. So because he couldn't calm himself, he was pretty much going into like anxiety attacks. And so he couldn't breathe at that point.
Yeah. Hyperventilating at the shock. Wow. So That's a lot. That's a lot to unpack. That's crazy.
You can only imagine being a mom, being a dad, and you're just like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And
yeah,
I will say, once they were able to get him on the helicopter and they were starting to en route, one of the firefighters on the scene came and talked to us, and he said, I just want to let you know that the fact that he is responding to pain is a good sign. Generally, that means that he's there, he's functioning. So in terms of like brain injury and all that jazz, like responding to pain is a good sign.
Yeah. So what happened was he was riding his bicycle. He stopped to cross the street and a car just hit him.
He was where the crosswalk was. It was a sidewalk, just like a normal layout where the crosswalk is there for the school. So he was literally in front of his school. And so he was coming across, and then when he got to the crosswalk, he looked both ways and did not see a car at the time. He was going at a fairly fast pace to come across the street. There's a kind of bit of an angle of where coming around the corner. So we think the car was just coming probably at a little bit faster speed than they needed to be going. Nothing excessive though, and he just didn't see him. And it wasn't one of those things where didn't not stop. As soon as it happened, he stopped. It was one of those where only imagine if you yourself had done same thing. If I were to have hit a kid myself, I would have been in just so much sadness and angst and agony. And so he did stop and call 911 and everything. So we were thankful for that.
So was the driver on his phone, or he just purely didn't see him? He was just in La La Land, I guess.
Just didn't see
driving.
him.
Wow.
We don't know the details of that. And
wow.
He did not see him.
Yeah, I mean, they say that all the time with riding motorcycles too, because I ride bikes, and one of the biggest things in motorcycle safety is they tell you other drivers are not going to see you. It's unintentional blindness. Yeah. So I think the same thing applies for bicycles as well, is just our eyes aren't trained to identify bikes, identify motorcycles. Even though that seems like something you would see, you just don't. You don't see them on the road unless you have been on a motorcycle, know somebody to ride a motorcycle. That opens your eyes a little bit more. But if you're just a driver who really doesn't have anything to do with it, the likelihood of you seeing them is not super high. So that's why drivers are a lot more of a danger to bicyclists or motorcyclists, because they just don't see him for whatever reason. And even though Austin was looking and did go a good pace, that's terrifying.
And it's one of those things too, where just as a driver, now that when you approach crosswalks, you should always just approach it with caution. No one, tells you to stop or slow down, but just as you're approaching it, just make sure you look at all your surroundings before you see. Even if there's kids on the sidewalk, make sure they're not about to cross the crosswalk at that point before you continue going. And that's just something now that we've always done, given this situation, and we've experienced it. Even at that specific crosswalk, every time I'm looking at all directions, I'm like, okay, we're good to go.
Wow.
I don't stop though.
Is it hard to drive by that crosswalk now?
Not anymore. And even if you ask Austin, he was okay with it. I felt like once he was able to get back to riding 6 months after the accident, he was not hesitant. He would still go by there and no big deal. Nothing had changed. So we were grateful for that too.
Austin is a tough kid. I mean, we're going to get into how he's recovered and all the things that he's doing now. But you mentioned something to me earlier when we were talking about the episode and how Austin's handled things, is how you felt towards the driver and what Austin said to you. I think was pretty profound. Would you mind kind of letting us know how you felt? I mean, everybody probably would as a parent feel the same way that you did for a while.
I guess there needs to be a little bit of backstory about Austin too. So Austin is a gentle giant, and he's always had that huge compassion, tons of empathy. He is just one of those kids. He cares about everybody, and he would put everybody else before himself, and just a huge, big bear, lovable kind of kid. And the one thing that really stood out for us is when this happened, I'd asked him, are you mad? Are you mad that this happened to you? And he's like, yeah, I am mad that this happened to me. I'm like, okay, understandable. Are you mad at the driver? And he goes, no, not really. And it's okay, why? And he's like, Mom, if you think about it, How would you feel if you were the driver and you accidentally hit a kid that was riding a bicycle? Totally accident, just didn't see him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would feel awful. Like it would torment me the rest of my life probably. I just don't know how I would handle it. And he goes, maybe that's how the driver feels. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Just one of those, like, coming from the kid that actually got hit by this car, for him to have so much empathy towards the actual driver himself and to know that it was an accident. Nobody meant to do this on all parties. Austin wasn't trying to be out on the road in the middle of it, while cars are going. This guy didn't mean to hit him and stuff, and it just happens. And so that has made me get past this incident without having a lot of hate and anger towards that person.
Yeah. Wow. And at his age, too, he's just so mature. I would never, at that age, 9, 10 years old, I would never think to.
Even still. And he feels the same way. He has no bad feelings towards the driver. It is what it is. I think in his perspective, it's things happen, you move on, and we're all going to be fine in the end.
Yeah. Wow. He's such a good kid. Wow. He's going to grow up and counsel us all.
Maybe one day.
That's crazy. So how is he doing now? I know
he's good. So when we finally got in to see him, it was a couple hours that we had to wait when we got to the hospital. And of course, it's in the middle of COVID, and we had to wear masks.
That was COVID time.
It was.
So they let both of you guys in the hospital.
Yeah, and so his sister could not go, though. So only my husband and I were able to be there to see him and stuff. And we could not have visitors. At the time, the hospital would not allow any visitors other than the parents. We get in there, and they put us in a waiting room. And so we're sitting in this waiting room for a good solid 2 hours. And finally, the doctor comes in. And you can only imagine, you're sitting there 2 hours. Like, the last that I saw my son, he was being airlifted to the hospital. And I'm waiting for, you have no idea what kind of thoughts are going through your head. Did we lose him? Is his brain dead? Everything. And so they finally came in. They're like, okay, we did all the tests, and we've got a spleen injury. We've definitely got a pretty bad leg injury here. And we've got another laceration on the other leg that's really bad that we're going to have to do surgery on. And it appears to be that we have a severe concussion, but we think that's it. We don't think that there is any kind of brain. We see all full brain activity. There's lacerations all over his body and stuff. But the doctor literally said, I think given the circumstances, he is coming out the best that he possibly could have come. And we're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So they were like, give us a few minutes and we'll get you back there. He's still intubated. We're going to keep him intubated for a couple of days. We've got to get him into surgery to work on his legs. But y'all should be able to come and stay with him and stuff. So they let us in. And of course, he's plugged up to all these different wires and machines and everything, and that's helping him breathe. And that was a bit of a sight to see, to walk in and that your son's hooked up to all these machines. You're like, oh my God, okay. But that next day they did the surgeries and they kept him intubated through that next day. And then going into that third day, they started to wean him off of the sedation and pulled him off of oxygen and stuff, because he started showing signs that he wanted to breathe on his own. And so that was a good sign. And so it was a slow progression. He was in the trauma wing for 3.5 days. And then they moved him to a regular room as he started to progress and get better and better. So we were in the hospital for 5 days, which surprisingly
That's not a lot.
Not a lot. They told us that as he met his goals, and they kept giving him goals every 12 hours or so, and as long as he was reaching those goals, that they would let us go home. And so he reached all the goals that he needed to reach, and he wanted to go home. He missed his sister, and it was getting close to his birthday, and he didn't want to be in the hospital. None of us wanted to be in the hospital. So we made it home in a wheelchair. So he was bound to a wheelchair for a few weeks, and they encouraged him to try to walk with crutches for as much as he possibly could, but it was really hard for him because both of his legs were pretty damaged. And so he had to stick to a wheelchair for a while. And there was his summer. His summer was gone. It was such a bummer because he didn't get to do much that summer other than play video games and watch TV.
Yeah.
But, he started to heal, and that was important to us. And so we had to, as soon as he was able to start walking with a boot, we started walking with a boot, and he was able to use one of those knee scooters. And so that was a good progression for him. He got to take a knee scooter to school whenever he returned back to school. And I guess it took him he started walking without a boot I guess it was May, June, July, about 6 months later, 5-6 months later. So he was back to walking.
Wow.
And then he did PT, physical therapy, for another 6 to 10 months or so, off and on.
Wow.
And now he's walking. I mean, he's fine. He has some pretty intensive scars because the one gash that he had in his leg that required surgery, he'll have that gash for the rest of his life. But in terms of him and his growth, like he's fine. We think he's going to be fine.
That's amazing. And he doesn't really remember much from the accident. I think I might have talked to him about it. He showed me the bicycle whenever I came to your house over the summer, and he showed me his bike and was saying he doesn't remember much. But how much does he remember from the accident?
Nothing.
Really?
So what he remembers, and it's crazy, is he remembers looking to his right as he was crossing the crosswalk and saw that a car was coming. And he said he knew he was about to get hit by the car. And so he doesn't remember from that point until he woke up in the hospital. So 4 days later or whatever. So when we finally pulled him off of the ventilator and was able to let him breathe on his own and he started waking up, that was the last memory he had. So in between that, nothing.
That's almost a good thing to an extent, because I've known people to get into motorcycle accidents and have seen everything unfold right in front of them. My leg is falling apart. They witness these accidents and they remember. And I've heard that could be the worst thing for you, is to actually wake up or stay conscious during any kind of severe accident and look at your body and look, oh, my leg is gone. And that can almost bring you so much more PTSD, and you can have a lot of trauma surrounding that more than you would if you just blacked out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's a big blessing for us, is that he doesn't remember any of it. And maybe subconsciously he will one day. I don't know. And maybe he's suppressed it, and it's possible that he's done that. But he does not recollect anything. He doesn't remember ambulances. He doesn't remember the helicopter ride, nothing. Now, granted, he was intubated at the time, so they had put him asleep less. From the point that he got hit until they were actually able to get him intubated and stuff, he doesn't remember any of that.
That's amazing.
No. So
wow.
We're grateful.
So how did you feel going up to the accident and seeing all these people looking at your son, watching your son? I think that would have made me really angry. I mean, maybe that's just not what you're thinking about. You're more concerned about, is he okay? Is he okay? But I probably would have been pretty angry at everybody just oohing and aahing and videoing.
No, I mean, in human nature, people are going to be attracted to what's going on. Mm-hmm. Honestly, adrenaline had kicked in for me, and it was just, get me to my son. I want to see him. I want to make sure he's okay. I need to see what happened. And I will tell you, the firefighters did calm us down. And not that we were, because my husband's a very calm person. Yeah. So thankfully, he was like that balance for me. But they were just reassuring, he's going to be okay. He's in bad shape, but I think he's going to be okay. Just, we're going to let you see him before we actually lift him or escort him to the hospital. So it really was just kind of, more or less, I want to see him. I want to make sure that he's still alive. And then from that point on, it's what do we need to do to get him to the hospital? Yeah. Whatever we have to do, let's get him to the hospital. I'm a teacher, so it's, you see a problem, let's fix it. So I was already in the mode, okay, how can we fix this? Yeah. What do we need to do to make them better again?
Wow. And people are asking, I think one of your biggest questions on TikTok, I could be wrong, but I mean, out of your thousands and thousands of comments that you have on these videos, I think one of the biggest questions you got was, why are the parents videoing this? Which kind of offended me, even though I'm so distant from the situation. But can you go into, I guess, answer that question for them?
I will say not all of the video or the photos were me. So our neighbor that had seen the accident, she actually was still there on the scenes. When she realized it was Austin involved, she went back to the accident. So a few of the photos actually came from her. Okay, so it's not like I'm going and I'm taking photos. I will say the video of him being put onto the helicopter, that was a spur of the moment. I literally was standing there. I grabbed my phone, because I'm holding it, of course, and I had already texted my mom and let my family know that, oh my gosh, this is happening. So I took the phone, put it on video, and I'm literally holding it like this. Like, I have no idea what is being viewed or whatever. And so I'm just holding it thinking, okay, this may or may not be something that I need to just document at a later purpose. Yeah. And when you're involved in an accident, they always tell you, document, take photos of anything and everything. And so some of the photos we came after the fact. So after he had been airlifted, one of the firefighters did come to us and say, you need to take a picture of the car and you need to take a picture of where his bike and stuff ended up. They told us that.
Yeah.
Or one of the firefighters told us that. The police had already done their investigation and they were taking their photos and everything, but you don't get access to that. And so he said, for insurance purposes, you need to take these photos just so you can give it to your insurance company, because you never know what's going to end up happening. So some of it was advice from the firefighters. Some of it was just, okay, I just need to do this because I think this needs to happen. And then others were from the neighbor that had given us some photos. So it wasn't something that I'm like, let's take photos of everything.
No, not at all. And for anybody, I'm sorry, but for anybody that thinks that's what's going through your mind, they must not have kids, because that's not going to be let me just video this and broadcast it. That is, I mean, it's been 2 years and you haven't said anything on the internet about it. This was Austin's call.
Yeah.
This was not you at all thinking, oh, I'm just going to post this and get some views, because now everybody does everything for views. But this was purely Austin wanting to get the word out.
Well, and really, because Austin and I have joked about it, and I've told him, I said, when scholarships for college and stuff come up, you have a story to tell. Like, you survived a car accident. The joke always was for him, he got a shirt afterwards that says, I do my own stunts. I'm like, he joked about it at first. And it was one of those things where, oh my gosh, I survived this crazy tragic event, and I'm here to live and tell the story. And then also encouraged my friends and everybody that, hey, I survived because I was wearing my helmet. So for him, we'd always joked about it, and that's when he decided he liked the idea of telling the story once he and I talked about it.
Yeah, because, I mean, I did not want to wear my helmet as a kid riding my bicycle.
None of us did. And honestly, I mean, thinking about how it was back in the day for us, there was never helmets. I don't even think I owned a helmet when I rode my bike when I was a kid.
Yeah, yep. And so it's probably the same. I'm sure there's some parents that make their children wear helmets. But, I mean, in Texas, as a motorcyclist, you don't even legally have to wear a helmet in the state of Texas on a motorcycle. So bikes, to some people, bikes aren't as dangerous at all. But if he wasn't wearing that helmet, we would be telling probably a different story right now. So I think it is important to, whether you ride a motorcycle, you ride a Harley, you ride a bicycle, a scooter, just take that precaution. But I think a lot of people don't want to look dumb. They don't want to look silly.
Well, and it's an extra step that you have to take. And we were all there. I mean, we ride pit bikes and stuff in the moto world, and you're going from one spot to another that's 50 feet away. And a lot of times there are times that we don't put our helmets on. Yeah. I think for us, when it comes to out there and you're around cars and you're putting yourself in situations where you just never know what's going to happen, you need to wear a helmet. And here's another perfect example of where helmet safety comes into play. My daughter and I were riding motorcycles not too long ago, and she slipped on the clutch and ran into me on a motorcycle. We were both wearing helmets, and we both went down, and I went down hard, and I hit my head. Thankfully, I was wearing my helmet and I was okay, but I can see where, if not wearing a helmet, how that could have potentially been a bad situation.
Oh, yeah. And it would have been different, too, if you were on concrete. I mean,
yeah, that was on grass and dirt and stuff, but absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Yep. You just never know. They say accidents happen within a few miles of your home. That's typically where accidents happen. And the places that you feel the safest, I think, is where people tend to be really lax. Like you said, we just get on a moto. I know whenever I went to moto with you guys, we were all having a good time, and I just got on the bike and cruised around. I'm probably wearing shorts and a t-shirt and sunglasses and just riding around on our bike. Even though you're comfortable, you feel comfortable, you think everything's okay, you just never know.
Yeah.
So I think that is, if anybody can take anything away from this, I would say take that extra step and pay attention. Pay attention on the road when you're driving. Pay attention to kids in the neighborhood, because you just never know.
Yep. No.
You never know.
It can happen to anybody, and that was how it was to us. You never... One of those situations where just was not anticipating that, and what a difference it made. And I will say, though, for us, it made us appreciate life a little bit more. And there's always situations when you don't expect it. That's an accident for you, and we're grateful, and we're beyond thankful that he's still here, because he's an amazing kid, and has a story to tell now.
Yeah, I can only imagine how his grandparents felt in that moment when you called your mom. What did you just texted her? You called her?
That memory fades me. I remember texting her at the moment, or I may have called her. I think I might have tried to call her and they didn't answer, and so I texted her, "Hey, Austin's been in an accident. Call you in a minute. I don't remember the exact details, but that was a tough one. But as soon as they had airlifted him and we were back in the car, we were walking back to the car. That's when I snapped the couple shots on our way back to getting in the car. We knew we had to get to the hospital, and we made sure that my daughter was taken care of. And we took separate cars because we weren't sure how the situation was going to go. And my husband and I were like, all right, you call your family, I'll call my family and let them know what's going on. Because we needed to get family up there to be with us. Because, you have no idea at that point what's going to happen. And so we had family that came up to support us and be there for us.
Yeah. It's nice that you're close by to family, close enough for them to, it's only a few hours. It's not several days to drive. It's a few hour drive. So that's a good thing. Wow. I know with adrenaline, whenever people get hit with adrenaline, typically they say time just stops, time freezes. Did that ever happen for you at any point?
Yeah, it did until we got to the hospital. And then the 2 hours felt forever, trying to wait and not getting anything from anybody and not having anybody to, because when you're in a trauma level, the doors are locked. So it's not like you can just go in. Like, they have locked doors and you are in this waiting room on the outside of these locked doors and there's nothing for you to do.
For a reason, I'm sure, because I think a lot of people that are waiting are probably also in shock. And when people are in shock, they're going to do crazy things like try and bust in and see what's going on.
Your heart kind of skips a beat whenever you get that call. And the drive over there is just your pounding heart, like what to expect. And then approaching, seeing fire trucks and the police cars and the car itself, you're just, okay, it's going to be okay. It's almost like you got to keep telling yourself, just breathe, you're going to be fine, it's going to be okay. Just sit down, relax, figure it out, it's going to be fine.
Yeah. And the driver that hit him, he stayed for the entire accident, or
he did.
The entire time.
Yeah. I don't know if he was the one that called 911 or not, but it was not a hit and run. Obviously, he had stayed.
Yeah. That's nice, because some people I know they would be afraid and they would just take off, and that is just horrible to think. So
you see that all too often too, actually.
Wow.
But no, we were thankful. And he provided insurance. He did everything that he needed to do. He took the steps, the precautionary steps. We have no ill will towards the driver whatsoever.
No, not at all. If it's an accident. Yeah. It is an accident.
It could happen to anybody.
Yep. And like Austin said, if that happened to you, how would you feel? I would be living with that. I would be having dreams about that. I would have a hard time driving, I think, any kind of vehicle if that was me. So I don't want to say give them some grace, but almost, if it purely was an accident, it wasn't a case of I'm texting and driving, I'm on my laptop and driving, because I've seen that too.
There was no drinking and driving or situations like that. It was purely an accident.
Yep. So in that situation, you just got to give them grace. But I think time helps too. Just having time to process and he's okay. And now, he does all kinds of sports. When I was up there, he did what? Baseball, football.
Yep, he wants to play football, actually. So that's his thing. He's our little gentle giant football player.
Yeah. So he's fully recovered, and he still rides his bicycle too, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, he had no problem getting back on the bike. That was the first thing everybody asked. Oh my gosh, are you not going to want to ride again? And he's, no, I'm going to ride my bike. Like, why wouldn't I? He just takes things in stride. He is such a great kid. And I will say, though, he is 100% recovered. We do still have some issues with a limp a little bit here and there. But I think a lot of it, too, wasn't necessarily the injury itself. It was the post-injury and him being in a cast and in a boot for so long. The muscles get stuck in a position. And so he was lazy with his physical therapy. So part of the limp, I think, is just him not putting forth the 100% effort that he needs to do. So
he's a kid. He said that when I was up there. He didn't want to do his PT. It took work. It's like, Austin,
it hurts. And I'm like, that's your muscles. You're stretching your muscles. That's part of it. So.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. And it's his left leg?
I'm trying to remember so the right leg was the leg that had the car hit him straight on, and that's the one that broke. And then the left leg has the big gash in it. So the car gashed into his leg.
Wow.
Yeah, when you look at the perspective, I think the right side. He got hit on his right side.
Yeah. Wow. We can definitely link the TikTok. I think that does a good job explaining the accident and breaking down what happened. But hopefully, I mean, out of all of those millions of views that you got, hopefully somebody took some good away, not just a piece of drama on the internet. Hopefully somebody took something, I should pay attention. This should be a learning lesson. Like, this happened to somebody. Hopefully, you know, I'm going to put my phone down.
Yeah. Well, and I got a lot of responses of people saying, oh my gosh, this is something I need to show my kids. So like, we fight all the time with them wearing their helmet. And that's all it's about. Just wear your helmet. Be cautious of your surroundings when you're out there, and just know that a car may not see you. So just make sure that you stop and watch, and make sure that it's an open area for you to go, and wear your helmet, and just know that it's important to follow safety protocols when you're riding.
Yep. And there's this app that I found a few days ago, actually. I'm going to plug it in here. But it is called On My Way. And I think that's such a good app to have. I shamefully admit that I do work on my phone as I'm driving. And that is horrible. I know. It's absolutely horrible. People are going to come for me. I know it's not good, but when I work from my phone, it's so easy to just answer a text real quick, or check this post real quick, or check this comment real quick as I'm driving. And it's become something that's so unconscious for me. I just feel like I'm able to fully pay attention to the road and do this when that's not the case. And I discovered this app, and I actually think it's pretty cool. I'm motivated by money, so it pays you every mile that you go to not text and drive and not pick up these apps, or pick up your phone and do that. So I think that is, if somebody does struggle with, that might be something to check out for sure.
I will say that now, you know, I've go with the whole hands-free situation with my phone, and it's helped too.
Really?
I mean, we've all been there. We all have our issues with being distracted when we're driving and stuff. But maybe it's just a quick reminder that it can happen to anybody.
Yep.
And Austin was one of those that it happened to.
Yeah. And I don't have the Apple CarPlay on my car, so I just have the old school. So if I want to do anything, I have to pick up my phone and then change the song and change it. And then when I go to do that, let me just look at this real quick. Let me
only do it at stops, okay?
I know. So I'm working on getting better. But the entire drive up here, I did not pick up my phone.
See? Baby steps.
Yes, baby steps. And it was a long drive up here. So that was good. I just picked it up real quick to change the podcast that I was listening to. That's what I do when I drive. So, well, any other pressing questions that people from TikTok had? I know we went over a few of them. Is there anything else that we want to touch on as far as people's TikTok questions?
I know there was a lot of questions that did talk about the driver, but you know, I don't have anything to say from that. I don't know whatever ended up happening after the fact. So once we got Austin up in the helicopter, we immediately left. And so the police and all the firefighters and stuff, they ended up staying behind. So I don't know whatever happened with him, nor is there any reason for me to even touch on any of that. Yeah. I will say, in talking about the helmet, there is one piece of the puzzle that has been very strange for us, and we never recovered his helmet. And we don't know what happened to it. We do know that it was split in half. Like, it actually was in two pieces. At least one of the firefighters that had reached out did say that it had split into pieces, but nobody knows what happened to it. So we don't know if it was just part of the trash that and then threw it away. So we do know he was wearing a helmet. It's just a matter of what happened to it. We have no idea.
Wow.
And another cool thing,
Cool?
No. What's actually happened from this, one of the firefighters that took care of Austin at the scene, I guess the video got sent to him, and he reached out to me personally via one of the other social media handles, and said, "Hi, Miss Gilmore. I actually was the firefighter on the scene that took care of Austin." And
chills.
This video was sent to me, and I'm excited, and I'm glad to see that he's doing well. And I just wanted to let you know that it's awesome to see that he's actually recovered from that. So that was a cool feeling. When you get that coming through, you're like, oh my gosh, if anything, that was a neat feeling right there.
How did Austin feel?
He was pretty cool. When he saw that, he's, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And so neat to have that come full circle where you're able to see the firefighter reached out to say, hey, I'm so glad that he was actually still doing well and everything.
Yeah. I know when my boyfriend Kevin got into his motorcycle accident, whenever he was recovered and able to get out of the hospital, he actually went to the fire station and thanked them for saving his life, because without them, he would not be here. Yeah. And so it's crazy how much of an impact firefighters and police officers, and they have on us. Without them, there's many people that probably wouldn't be here. And you can tell they care. The fact that he reached out to you, he recognized the scene, he remembers that from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they see stuff all the time. I mean, I've dated firefighters, I've dated policemen, and they see crazy shit all the time. Yeah. And for him to remember that moment and then care enough to reach out to you, that really shows where their heart's at.
Yeah, that was a really cool feeling when that came through. I was like,
wow. See, the internet can be a good thing and sometimes bring people together. Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I'm glad he's doing okay, and I'm glad that he has a story to tell, and hopefully in the future he can help all of his friends.
Yep. And this is his story to tell too. And I know he's not here. He's not one of those that likes to be in front of the camera, more or less. But, you know, it is his story that he will then carry with him for the rest of his life. And he's proud. I don't want to say he's proud of his story. He's proud of being able to triumph over tragedy and to tell his story to friends and say how important it is for helmet safety.
Yeah. Yep. And I will say the one comment that I saw that just drove me up a wall was, she probably just got these pictures off the internet. That one sent me. That sent me.
Oh, yeah, no. And this is a real story. I know people, there was a lot of comments like, this isn't real. It's not a real story. I'm like, okay, no, it is. We lived it. That was not a fun summer having to push around a wheelchair. And that it didn't make it easy for him because to be confined in a wheelchair for a few weeks, that was not fun at all. And right before your birthday too. So he didn't get to do a birthday, which was tough. Yeah.
Yeah. But from here on out, he can have really good birthdays.
Although I will say, though, for his birthday that year, he had some really great, awesome friends, and their parents came together and did a drive-by. So they did a birthday drive-by with the fire truck that actually saved him. The firefighters that were first on scene led a 100-car drive-by birthday shout-out for him.
Really?
Yep. That was pretty neat.
How does that stuff get organized?
I have video of that too. Maybe I should post that.
Yeah. How does that get organized? Is that the community that?
Yeah. So actually, it was the principal of his school had. Her and one of his friend's mom came together and created a little birthday invitation of a drive-by, and they decided on the date and time of when everybody was going to gather, and then they drove from his school through our neighborhood and did a drive-by for him. So we had him outside for the drive-by and everything. It was pretty neat. So I think that kind of saved the day, saved the week, saved the birthday for him that year.
That would be awesome. Where I was at mentally at 10, nowhere, there would be no processing that. I don't think I would have fared well, but I know that would have been really cool.
Yeah. He enjoyed it. It was a good birthday for him, even though it was a tragic birthday.
Yeah. Wow. I guess, is there anything else you'd like to add? That's pretty much all of my questions for you. No,
I'm glad that we were able to tell his story. It's a good story to tell.
Me too. And maybe one day he'll want to come on and talk about his experiences after the fact, but has to get a little older first.
Yeah. I mean, for him, it's a quiet tragedy. He is still proud of himself for overcoming it and everything. But, you know, one day, I think he'll come about and want to tell it in his perspective.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Thanks for driving this far.
It's so beautiful out too. We need to get.
I know where we're looking at. We're looking at lake and trees, lots of trees. So pretty view we've got. So it's better than my other podcast view. I turn on the TV and just look at the AI generated scenery instead. But that is it for today's episode of Nothing About Something. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, we will see you guys later. Bye-bye.